talk environment, it's actually the whole world.
Oh, sure.
It's politics.
Yeah.
It's, how we live. It's the choices we make. It's what we wear. It's everything. I mean, the environment is life. Welcome to reVyven, where environmental ideas come to life. At reVyven, we aim to connect, learn, and make a difference.
Today we're sitting down with one of the co-founders, Robert Schutens.
Good morning.
Hi. And we are going to talk a little bit more about reVyven, get to introduce you to Robert so you know a little bit more about him as a person and an individual and the face behind reVyven, but what he does outside of this. And I think where we hope to go in the future with the organization. So
let's get into it.
Robert, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Well, I'm born and raised in California. Went to school in Drexel University outside Philadelphia, or in Philadelphia. We lived outside of Philadelphia, so a little bit of both. And then we moved to Switzerland. So that's kind of my, let's say, worldly experience there. Worked different jobs, different things. Not afraid to roll up my sleeves and get my hands dirty. Yeah, passionate about the outdoors, cycling. I like to run. Do you want my CV or what?
No, I don't need the comprehensive CV.
Okay.
I think that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are you curious about?
Oh boy, like everything.
Okay.
No, how things work, how things function, like the details of something, taking things apart, not always putting them back together, but just like curious on stuff.
Yeah, I think that taps into Robert's background as a mechanical engineer.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, probably the not putting everything back together part.
Which also highlights our son's room.
Yeah, every engineer could understand that or relate to it. So
absolutely. And to pivot off of that, your curiosity is to kind of manipulate things and take things apart, put them together sometimes. But what are you passionate about? Do you feel like your passions are different than your curiosities?
Yes and no. I mean, I'm passionate about, like, let's say at work, making things more efficient or making things function properly. I don't, you're not always afforded the tools or the resources to do it. So that also inspires a little bit of innovation around taking what you can and making it work with what you have. So you're not always, not everybody has the most funding or the most resources or the most, exhaustive team to help. But, being small, agile, and limited also gives you the ability to innovate over what you can work with. And I think that is, let's say, something I'm passionate about, is just figuring things out. Other passions are around the environment and nature, because it's just so wonderful and amazing, and the way nature and the environment works and functions is just mind-blowing if you really get into it, if you really think about it.
Yes.
I mean, it's like the best engineer in the universe.
Exactly.
But the other things I'm passionate about, waste. My kids will probably totally understand this, because I don't like when they don't eat their food or they throw stuff away. Which reminds me a little bit of, I read something on a plane one time. I spent some time back and forth in Japan, and there was this article on the plane that highlighted this person who was come from the Shinto religion. And it was funny because he had commented on how in Shinto there's the idea that everything has a soul, and that there's a, when you dispose of something too soon, like a single-use item, this person would comment that it would lie in the trash crying because it was used once and it didn't fulfill its purpose.
Oh, it's so sad.
So yeah, it kind of highlights a little bit about the waste aspect, where things can be used more than just this one time.
Yeah.
So I'm passionate about that.
I think that also highlights this idea of being an owner versus being a consumer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you own something, you take care of it. You want it to last.
Well, and being a consumer, I mean, everybody's a consumer on some level, but
Sure.
it makes you reconsider what you consume, or even how frequently you consume.
Right.
Whether it's clothes or food or electronics, whatever it is. Having that idea of what will you do when you're done with it makes you kind of wonder how long can you have it,
Right.
and what really happens to it when it's done.
Yeah. Like, when we throw something away, what does away really mean?
And even what happens when it's, let's say, done early. I mean, if something fails before it should,
Sure.
or computer systems are really great at failing right after their warranty's expired.
Sure.
Well, that's fantastic, but now what? Now you got to buy a new computer? I mean,
Yeah.
if it was able to be designed a little bit better, with better longevity or better, software maintenance or whatever, then you could use it certainly a lot longer. I mean, even our phones could be used a lot longer had they just been maintained.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a level of responsibility, and, something that maybe we'll get into with reVyven for sure.
Yeah.
Whether it's designed obsolescence or responsibility in the market and to customers and consumers, but that might take us down a rabbit hole. So,
that's true. I mean, definitely.
So we'll bring it back. I have a lot of questions to ask you in terms of what you just said. One of them I'll ask, and then we'll pivot. But you had said trying to make the most of what you can for purposes of functionality or the best product or whatever it is when you have limited resources. So that draws me into, do you believe that what you do really needs to draw on creativity and innovation and thinking outside of the box? There's a lot of that I would imagine that transpires in that area.
Well, I mean, some people, I get the feeling, are waiting for humans to engineer themselves out of a climate problem or out of, some kind of environmental situation that we've gone down. And I'm kind of like, okay, there's certain innovations that can take place, but is it going to be regret solutions in the sense that you created something to try to solve one problem and then you've created something else?
Yeah.
Like, I was reading an article the other day on solar panels in space, and basically creating the energy in space and then beaming it down to Earth. It sounds totally science fiction, but is that not causing some kind of problem to beam energy back to the surface of the Earth that's going to cause some other regret solution? That as much as outside of the atmosphere we get 100% of the sun, so you don't have to worry about weather patterns and stuff like that for solar energy, but maybe the solution is dialing back how much energy we're consuming in the first place. So it's a little bit of just, let's start paying attention to the bigger issue. Right? Consuming more is not the solution. So, and this is just one example. I'm not here to criticize the solar panel in space solution, but I'm just, as you think through a solution, it's like, well, okay, maybe there's another alternative out there. So, and I think, back to the point of like innovating and creating something with limited resources. I mean, the world is a limited resource.
Sure, absolutely.
There's only so much raw material that we can work with, and a lot of it, once it's built, can't be taken apart and recycled, but it should be. I mean, if you really think about it, then probably we could. I mean, if you burn oil, then of course you can't get the oil back after it's burnt, but there's certainly, other things that if you make a battery, why can't you take a battery apart, or some other form of whatever? I mean, we make tons of cars and we don't take those apart and recycle them. You can't take rubber and melt it back down and reuse it. So there's certain things that we consume knowingly that it's going to become waste. And I think we need to be more mindful with understanding our limitations and being able to work within our natural system.
Yeah, I think that's the engineer in you and the way that you think and conceptualize as well.
Which not everybody thinks like that.
No, and that's okay. I mean,
Right.
I think that's, that's very beneficial.
Yeah.
And that leads us to why you started reVyven and why you started it now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as you will hear or may have heard on another podcast with yourself, with Melinda.
Yeah, with me.
We wrote books on hiking guides in Switzerland, and I think having done that for many, many years, I mean, we've been hiking in Switzerland since 2007,
Mm-hmm.
and writing books. We've been exposed to the Alps and the outdoors quite a bit, and having gone to several locations several times, we start seeing lots of change, and not just like little change. We see significant change. I mean,
Right.
the glacier receding on the Furka Pass, other glaciers that are disappearing, which, I mean, in Switzerland, there's 1,800 glaciers or something in the Alps?
Yes,
Something
there's
around that?
20 large glaciers,
Yes.
but there are
Many, many small ones
yes.
as well. Even doing a glacier trek, which was fascinating, interesting, and amazing. Having a passion for outdoors and being aware of this, and even seeing the drastic changes in weather, unpredictability of weather, and also the intensity of the weather. I mean, we've seen intense rainstorms that just pour through the valleys of some places in Switzerland and just carve through the mountains, and it's creating so many different changes in the landscape that it's really unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's what we've seen, and our passion behind reVyven is not to be doom and gloom and watch out and this is
No.
the end of the world's coming and all that. I think really the background of it is we want something that's more positive. There are positive things out there. There are people doing the right thing. I don't like the word sustainability, because what does it mean to anybody or any company is very different. So I don't want to speak about that, but really around what's positive. What are people doing the right thing for the environment? And what are those stories? Because we love to hear them. And even just what we've already done, we've heard so many different people give so many different positive stories that it's really enlightening. So so as much as we focus on that, that's kind of the main goal of reVyven, let's say.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to the question I just asked you and then your response, but it's really coming up with creative solutions to what may be big problems, but being able to tackle them. And we see that with the people we interview, that they're tackling them maybe at the local level, but these ideas can transcend to a broader broader scale. So
yeah, and I mean, you had touched on in the other episode around Mindbound, Timebound, my tree, your tree, and the need for cooling off the cities through adding trees.
Sure.
And there's different cities doing different solutions for that. So it may be a tree here, it may be a pseudo surfboard in Los Angeles that's creating shade, but but it's very different to different people. But if people are curious about putting a tree in their in their city or being able to do that, then here's a solution that works locally in Switzerland, and maybe the people who have done it have already broken down the barriers enough for somebody else in the world to learn. So that's another aspect of what we're doing, is that yes, we're finding these stories and we're telling these stories and we're sharing them with the idea that other people would appreciate and even learn from those experiences that help, let's say, everyone start to improve the environment as a better place.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. And I think it's nice that, you can see people doing pretty cool things at the local level, and coming up with the creative solutions for big problems. Since you've launched reVyven in September of 2023, do you have a favorite moment with someone that you've met, with an outdoor immersive experience, or something you'd like to highlight that really left an impact on you?
Well, we did meet with Oliver from Louvre, the ice cream company that upcycles, and that was really positive because there was a lot of nice energy around that. Very, very knowledgeable, very interesting, and that was nice. Also, I hosted an outdoor experience with a group of international people, and that was really nice because we we started with a nice dialogue, a nice conversation around, the challenges with the environment, the types of changes that we're seeing today, not just global warming and stuff like that, but and also understanding a little bit about what they are seeing on the local level, which, it may not be just around the environment, but if you talk about energy, I met with somebody from South Africa, and they were having issues with corruption and, the energy consumption, and not having reliable energy for the city. So it's a challenge not just on the environment, but it's also on the policy level and how things function within countries.
Sure.
So when we talk environment, it's actually the whole world.
Sure.
It's politics.
Yeah.
It's, how we live. It's the choices we make. It's what we wear. It's everything. I mean, the environment is life. So having that conversation with people really, I guess, helped broaden the perspective of what it is we're doing and the conversations we're having. But also, after that conversation, we got outside and we had a nice experience outside, and got to connect with other people outdoors, which is also very, very nice. And let's say it's somewhat easy to do in Switzerland, because you can't really go anywhere without enjoying the outside. I mean, it's a beautiful country, so we really appreciate that every time we're out.
And where can you highlight some of the countries that these people were coming from?
U.S., Mexico, South Africa, Romania, Canada. Yeah, it was quite a diverse group.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah. And it's nice that you all have the environment and the natural world in common.
Oh, yeah. It was really nice. It was a good group of people.
Yeah.
Really appreciative.
I think that's the kind of cool thing that we're discovering, is that, our humanity will always connect us, but the environment has a huge ability to bring community together. And everyone has something to say about it. Like you said, South Africa, the South African person was able to draw on their experiences with power, but somebody coming from Romania might have a similar experience, might have something different, but there's a lot of commonality in that.
Yeah, it was a really interesting experience. I mean, and it touched on all topics, like I was saying, like energy, farming, cities, policy, how companies are interacting with, let's say, sustainability in the environment, which isn't always the same thing. So yeah, it was. I think what I like about reVyven is that the more we do it, the more we connect and learn. Yeah. And I think the learning aspect is as much us as anybody else. So it's great.
Yeah, it's kind of mind blowing, like how much we're learning and taking away from our guests and the people that we meet, which is pretty awesome. Yeah. And what are you planning for or hoping to do in 2024, coming up in the new year?
Without
giving away too much?
Without giving away too much.
Yeah, because a lot is still in the works, right? And that's how...
Yeah. I mean, we don't really make any reveals until we actually have things confirmed.
Yeah.
Where do we see ourselves? We have a list of all the different areas that we want to, let's say, meet on and talk about, and things like that, which is very diverse. I mean, if you think of like what I just said about the environment, and the environment really is all of us.
Yeah.
I mean, that could go anywhere. I mean, we did have the opportunity to talk with a group that, let's say, is more politically based, and having the conversation, or let's say the pre-discussion with them about where we wanted to go, kind of helped us realize that politics is not really where we want to go, because politics is the environment is very politically driven.
Yeah, there's no aspect of it that isn't.
So that being said, yes, we don't want to go into politics or the discussions around it or the specific, lobbying around it. But I mean, if you just talk agriculture,
sure,
or anything about the environment in that aspect, it's like, well, hey, there's politics, and let's talk about the fashion industry. Well, hey, there's politics, and let's talk about the energy, consumption and batteries and electric vehicles. It's like, well, there's more politics. So it is very political, but we don't necessarily need to connect directly with politicians and those organizations, because what we're after is to tell the stories of people who, despite all of it, are making a positive change.
Yeah, that the politics aren't holding them back, that they're still implementing good in the area of which they're working in.
And honestly, I mean, you can find naysayers everywhere, right? I mean, there's always somebody trying to hold you back. I mean, sometimes yourself is holding you back from doing something or acting on something. But, despite all of it, somebody's making a positive change, and that's what we want to profile.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do I know what's coming?
Yeah.
I know it's a little bit what's in the works, but there are definitely some organizations and individuals that we have, let's say, on our radar, but we're also always open to looking for more. So, this is a little bit word of mouth. It's a little bit of investigational research and figuring out who's doing what and who's active. And, whoever's listening, then fantastic. If you have some ideas or things that they want to hear, fantastic. Reach out, let us know, and we'll get them involved.
Yeah. And having that said, talking about where you're hoping to go in 2024, do you have one thing you really want to focus on in the new year?
That's really good. I think getting outside more. I mean, like, we already get outside quite a bit, but I want to look at how we can take reVyven outside, in the sense of, let's dig more into the cultural understanding of what drives people to go outside. Let's look at why people are motivated and how people are motivated and the different types of people who get outside. And, I'd love to have the conversation. I mean, this isn't a trail podcast, but certainly, who's to say that we can't have those conversations outside or in a different place? I think we can broaden this. I mean, we've done live events, we've done over the internet, we've done different types of things, and I think, why can't we, right? Yeah. There's no limits.
No, there are no limitations for this, so we're very receptive and open to new ideas. I think that makes sense. And if you had one superpower, I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be
invented.
I
don't have a super? No.
I think you have many superpowers. He can fix anything. But one superpower, whether it's in the realm of reVyven or just in general, is there one? What is your superpower, would you say?
Wow, it's probably my drive to figure things out. If that's like a real superpower, what would be my dream superpower? I don't know. I don't. Maybe that would be the Batman in me, of like being the tech. But I'm not a billionaire, so that I don't have that going for me. But no, I think it would be nice to figure things out, but actually like make things work more. Let's say, kind of what I was saying about problem solving in the environment. Like the solar panels in space. I don't know that that's the best solution, but if I could be creative enough to find a better solution, then that would be fantastic.
Okay, so you just highlighted your superpower. And now we'll ask the question of, if you could do or be anything, what would it be? I like movies. I'm not like, don't ask me to like quote movies or anything like that. I'm not good at remembering quotes or people's names, unfortunately. But no, I would probably write or produce films or something like that. Wow.
Because it's kind of like the connection of technology and storytelling that fascinates me in a visual art way. And I wouldn't call myself an artist, but I mean, I like photography, and that's shown up in our books. But if that could be something that I do, that would probably be of interest. Yeah.
That's a big pivot from mechanical engineering and the environment, but
slightly.
That's okay.
I mean, I do have several cameras. I'm just fascinated with, mechanisms and like, electromechanical and light and physics, and it's fascinating. So it doesn't make me a film producer or movie buff, but whatever. I find it just the whole synergy of that storytelling and visual arts, and it's amazing.
Yeah. That's cool. And before we move into pivot to our speed round, as we like to call it,
Nice.
let me ask you what you like most about spending time in nature.
There's so many different aspects of nature that are awesome. You could look on the micro level of what's going on in nature and just be like fascinated.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just stop in a forest and look at a log that's decaying with fungus and ants and moss, it's like the entire ecosystem is just, when you really sit and think about it, is just amazing.
Yeah.
And then you can just be walking through the mountains and the light is changing, the clouds are moving, the animals are, when you see them, like ibex in nature, it's just amazing. And you're venturing into their world, right?
Yeah.
I mean, as much as Switzerland is covered by 65,000 kilometers of trail and you can go pretty much anywhere, humans are everywhere in Switzerland, but you still find quite a bit of nature. And I think that's like just amazing. And I think the mountains, they're just like we can't get enough.
Right.
And like when the spring comes, it's like, hey, time to go.
Yeah.
It's really nice. So yeah, I would say
Yeah.
definitely mountains.
And I think the thing about the mountains and the Alps in particular is that there are people, but most of the people congregate and live and reside in cities. And so when we do go to the Alps, we really have a sense of being away and being immersed in the natural world and in a way that doesn't exist for us residing in a city.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Switzerland is very, let's say, comfy, cozy in terms of the outdoors. I mean, it's not like you're in the middle of nowhere and like Alaska and you're vulnerable to crazy bears or whatever. That's like it's not like that. Like I would say you're probably a stone's throw away from a hut where you can go buy a meal, right?
Sure.
I mean, it's things are very accessible and the human element is very present. But you're still exposed to the elements. You're still outside. You're still getting snowstorms in beginning of August, right? So it's nice to experience nature, and I guess it's maybe a little safer than Alaska. So there's not bears in Switzerland. Well, there's the occasional bear that has a tag on it that everyone knows where it is, but but there's not. I mean, there's not really anything that's super threatening here.
Yeah.
Except if you try to go pet a calf in the middle of a cow field, like
right. That's just that's
the mother cow is going to come after you. So
exactly.
So there are dangers, but not significant like other places.
Yeah, in terms of wildlife and the interaction of man and animals. So that's nice. But we can still, there are still some of our favorite locations in the Alps that are accessible by foot and helicopter only. Yeah. So while you do have a hut there or a mountain inn,
you got to work to get there.
Exactly. And then you do feel really remote. You're not seeing cars or any type of infrastructure and no transportation. And that to us is like pure bliss.
Well, in July, I went to Gleichsteinhütte, which is just above Grindelwald. And if you think that, it's just above Grindelwald, that's like 5.5 hours up 1,200 meter climb on top of a perched, cliff basically, with amazing views of glaciers, and the ibex come up and hang out almost every night. So it's like, it's beautiful. Yeah. But, you can look over the hill and see down into Grindelwald, right? So you're never far away from, civilization or anything. But sometimes, you got to work to get to some nice places. Yeah.
And the harder you work, the more magical the place we've
we've
discovered. That's for sure. Yeah, I agree. So we're going to go into our speed round, which is kind of a rapid fire, get ready. We're going to shoot off some questions. And we're pretty consistent with these questions because we just want to hear from the people who come to our forum events and then also each other. So we're going to flip the table and ask you, our first question being, do you believe one person, one organization has the power to impart positive change?
The short answer, yeah. I think you remember the comment we heard from somebody where they basically asked, well, I'm only one person. I can't possibly make an impact. And it made me think quite deeply about it that, well, you were only one person following everybody else, consuming and coming down this path to help get where we are today. So you didn't have a problem getting here, but now you have a problem backing up and saying, oh, I got to change. Well, no, we all have to change. We have to change as humans on this planet. So, and even if you don't believe that we have to change, fundamentally one person can make a difference. I mean, the companies and groups we've already talked to, it's, one person starting a tree organization that's planting thousands of trees in Switzerland. Another starting an ice cream company that's upcycling food and reducing the waste. I mean, Switzerland alone has 2 million tons of food waste a year, and that's a lot. And so they're making a difference by reducing that. Mm-hmm. So yes, it's one person, and they got together with 4 other people, and now it's 5 people who have the same vision, who are helping to make fantastic ice cream and making a positive impact. I mean, it's beautiful. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, you and I, we're just 2 people. Mm-hmm. We have similar visions and ideas, and anything that we can talk about and shed light on or share stories. I mean, hopefully that's enough to have an impact on other people.
Mm-hmm. I agree. With all the projects that you do, what of them brings you the most joy?
Connecting with people and sharing stories. I think I touched on having conversations and being open to conversations. I think I'd like to better understand the culture of people, mm-hmm. and to really dive into kind of what makes them tick, their level of understanding, maybe their relationship with nature or their lack of relationship with nature, and really just get to know people on a different level. Mm-hmm. Because I think that has value to me, and I think it's interesting to hear people's stories, where they come from, what do they do, what interests them, why did they learn a certain thing or start a company, or it's really interesting when you start asking why and understanding people.
Yeah, people are fascinating for sure. And that leads us to when you are conducting live forum events, or you're outside with a group of people that perhaps you've never met before, what do you enjoy most about those experiences?
That's a good question. I think what I enjoy most is coming away from that experience. I mean, it's somewhat intimidating to walk into a group of 20 people and that you don't know, and you're like, hey, how's it going? It can be intimidating, but at the end of the day, people are there at a live forum, or we are invited to an outdoor experience or something to lead that. We're invited to do that, and people are interested in what we're doing, and I find that reassuring. But after those events is typically what's more fulfilling. Is it's a nice experience. It's a good, rejuvenating experience. It's people are positively impacted by it. People thank you for it. And I walk away learning something from it. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like you were saying, the growth mindset. Mm-hmm. It's like, yes, we are learning and growing from having a conversation with somebody, which sounds simple, but it's like everywhere's education. Yeah. Right? And just having a conversation, and I didn't know that, or oh wow, okay, that's a different perspective, or I've never heard from this part of the world before, and that's wow, okay, I didn't know that was going on. So yeah, it's good. It's really good.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And what impact do you hope to have on the world?
Oh, impacts. Yeah, I hope that I can connect people who are like-minded or are helping to solve problems for others around the world. I mean, in the sense of what we're doing with reVyven, I think it'd be nice to have stories told and people learn from them, and for that to trickle into other action. I think that would be really nice, is that people act on the positive stories mm-hmm. that we're doing. I think if that can happen, then that's fantastic. Mm-hmm.
And as we've seen, positive things are happening, and that's what we aim to highlight. So it's very nice to have the opportunity to do that. What is your favorite book? Do you have a favorite book?
Yeah, favorite book. I'm not as a prolific reader as you are, but I do read.
Yes.
No, but I would say there's several. I mean, one of the more recent ones that I read was Should Trees Have Standing by Christopher Stone. I think that was a fascinating read because it really looks at the legal aspects of nature and perhaps the lack of representation that nature has, and not just nature, but like, you know, the oceans, the air, the land we have, the animals within it, all of it. And I think at its core, what I got out of it is that the legal system functions on a pay penalty kind of, let's say, detriment. You know, somebody harms your property and now you need restitution for it. Well, because of this financial exchange in the legal system, if something's not owned, then there's no legal representation, which is, well, who owns the ocean? Nobody owns the ocean. Everybody goes in and takes what they want, and there's no really regulatory basis for it. So I think it's very important that the environment have some kind of, let's say, representation legally. Yeah. And I think we need to be more responsible with managing it. So that was a recent book that I read that was pretty impactful. But yeah, there's probably some others.
Yeah. Well, what you said about the environmental representation, it makes me think of Dr. Seuss's book, The Lorax.
Yeah.
Where you have the little character who said, I come to speak for the trees.
Yeah.
And we don't have that right now.
Don't.
And that's quite sad. Yeah. But that's a really important book to highlight, a very prominent topic.
Yeah.
Particularly as we move into depleting resources. So thanks for sharing that. And then as we close today, where do you hope to see reVyven go in the future? Or what is your dream or vision for reVyven?
Well, I mean, I kind of touched on it with one of the earlier questions, was how can it be connecting others outside of our immediate area? And how can we share and tell the positive stories and have others kind of catalyzed into action? So I think, you know, it's easy to hear and do this and do that, but, you know, if we're not acting on something, if we're not changing a little bit of our behavior, I mean, it could be as basic and fundamental as, you know, not buying into the fashion industry engine, you know, 5 times a year. Well, everybody needs clothes, so I don't expect everyone to stop buying clothes, but like, do we need 20 seasons of clothes in a year? Probably not. Do we need to buy fashion clothes, whatever, for, you know, 5 times a year? No, we don't. But if you buy something and take a consideration of, you know, it should last, and if it's a different color for the season that's coming up, does it really matter? Right? I mean, just make things last. Like, be a mindful consumer. Right? So even if you dialed back 5% of your actions, then if everybody did a little bit, then we wouldn't be in such a bad situation. So again, so if we can connect other people and just tell positive stories on how people are impacting, then we should be able to connect with others and hopefully give them some positive action.
Yeah. I think that we really want to highlight the positive for sure.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. Well, that's the end of our speed round. Do you have anything else you want to add or that I missed today that you'd like to highlight? Do you feel like it's been comprehensive and good? Did we?
Yeah, I mean, no, we touched on a lot of different topics, but I'm sure there's more. Maybe we have more of these thought-provoking conversations in the future. So I don't want to limit it to that.
Yeah.
And obviously, if there's other people out there that want to have a conversation with us and share their stories, then yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, we're quite receptive to that. So you can get in touch, and we're just reVyven.com. Probably the best way to reach out to us at this point. We're also on Instagram. And I think those are our main outlets at this point. But So well, thanks for being here today, Robert, and sharing your ideas, not only on reVyven, but the environment as a whole, and then helping our audience get to know a little bit more about you. So
Cool.
yeah, so continue to do the good work that you're doing.
Thanks.
Yeah, until we meet again. Yeah,
like
thanks.
in 5 minutes.
Yeah, we live together, so. Okay, well, thank you and have a good day.
Thanks. You too. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to be awesome and share this podcast with your friends. Click subscribe, rate, and review. Do you have a story to tell? An organization you'd like to tell the world about? We love to hear from you and our global community. So please get in touch with us at reVyven.com. That's reVyven.com. Or send us an email at reVyven.com@gmail.com.